Welcome to Reddit Aliens. People who have had a stalker, how did you realize you were being stalked? And what eventually happened? Not safe for work. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. My wife did. It became a real problem. He was a maintenance man at the school where she taught. She was throwing out a lot of old damaged books. He asked if he could have them for his kids, of course. After that, he wanted to always be there, wherever my wife was. He was always sweeping or cleaning near her room. Then one day in the winter, my wife got a flat right after leaving school. It was getting dark, and her new best friend is there to fix it. While changing the tire, he started asking sexual questions. He wanted to know if she ever had a black man. Of course, she said nothing. It got worse, and the school administration was ignoring it. I was now going way out of my way to take her and to pick her up from school. She was scared. Then, he said something to her while she was eating in the cafeteria. She lost it. She just started screaming and crying for him to leave her alone. They sent her home for a few days paid leave. Since the school was no help, I went to see 2 school board members I knew, but not well. I told them that I had hired an attorney and would be suing the school district unless my wife felt safe. They moved the custodian to another school, but it took months before my wife felt safe. The custodian got in trouble at the next school and was arrested. We never heard from him again. It was my ex. When we broke up, it was all very dramatic, and he got on a bus across the country the same day for whatever reason and sent a long message from the bus ending with, "This is not goodbye." I said, "Yes it is, good luck." 2 years later, I met my now husband, and I suppose he moved back after 3 years. I started seeing him everywhere. He followed the 2 of us around Walmart for 45 minutes until I just posted up near a security guard and slipped out as he tried to wait for me to get away from the security guard. Then, I saw him wandering around near my mother's house, but I had at that point moved in with my husband. Then I saw him outside of my work. He was clearly trying to get the courage to come in, and he was also very clearly high. Some of the regular police officers came in by chance for their coffee, and he left when they arrived. Then he figured out the general location where I was living, and I saw him sort of wandering around a few times. I didn't go home when I saw him. I went and sat in a public place for a few hours. Then I changed places of work, and I saw him outside about 3 times. I was near a major transportation hub, so I tried to ignore it, but when he started doing the pacing, twerking, chain smoking thing again, I figured I ought to do something, so I waited for a family friend I knew would be in who was pretty domineering, and I knew would go to bat for me, and let him know who it was and what he was doing. He went outside and told my ex off, I suppose, and scared him, I guess, because he left quite quickly. My family friend was a bus driver, so I gave him a picture, and he shared it with some drivers along my regular route, and as long as I stuck to that route, the few more times I saw him trying to get on the bus, we drove right past him on the wrong door open to let people off and not let him on. We finally moved again, and I quit my job because I had been bouncing around the same chain and was easy to find. Since then, I have seen him once, but he didn't see me, and I think it was unrelated because he actually bought something. I just sat in the camera room and watched till he left. It's been an additional 5 years now, so I assume he has figured himself out. I got an air of doom every time I saw him. He was kind when we dated, never abusive, but he was anti-drugs and anti-smoking, and so seeing him high and things like that set off alarm bells. I know he was not well when he returned. I don't know what would have happened had he gotten close to me. Maybe nothing, but every bone in my body was screaming danger. So I trusted my gut, took steps to maintain distance, and I was okay. The police wouldn't have done anything. No threats were uttered, and we were always in public, but all in all, it turned out okay. I had a stalker in high school, and he didn't make it a secret. We were friends at first, kind of talking romantically, but I was very shy when it came to relationships or being physical. We had never even kissed before when he asked if he could send a song he wrote about me. It made me feel uncomfortable, and I asked him not to send it, but he did anyway. I expressed my discomfort and tried to continue the friendship, but it was just not working because he would still write me poems and send me weird songs. He started following me to my classes, even though his were on the other side of the school, but he wouldn't speak to me at all. It was insanely uncomfortable. This continued for weeks. He started sending me mean messages anonymously online and sending me songs with scary titles. He sent me that Smiths song, "The More You Ignore Me, the Closer I Get," every single day, sometimes multiple times. Then one day at lunch, he gave me a handwritten poem, and I can't remember what all it said, but the end was something about how he wanted to watch me get eaten alive by sharks. While friends, I had told him sharks were my biggest fear. I showed my teacher the poem, and she freaked out and took it to the guidance counselor. She knew all the previous incidents, so the letter made her worried, especially how his handwriting changed when he was writing about me dying. I ended up getting called into a meeting with the principal, a guidance counselor, and the teacher I told. They even called my mom in, and we all sat down and talked about what would be the best thing to do. The principal was really nervous he would do something crazy, so he said I should just avoid him as much as possible and be polite anytime we may interact, basically how I was already handling it. I'm not sure if they ever spoke to him about it, but the last interaction I had with him still creeps me out to think about. I was up very late and received a text from him. "Why are you up so late? You should get ready for bed." He had been to my place once before, and I live very close to the school. I'll always wonder if he was outside my house that night. Some of those first love, stalkerish moments that start in high school are very difficult. It's a complex range of emotion and hormones and coming into your own. Not an easy situation, but I'm glad most of these turned out fine and safe for the most part. It started while I was still in high school. He would be in a few of my classes and we would occasionally see each other around town, a very small rural town. It slowly turned into him showing up at some of my friends' group's hangout spots and saying that I had inspired him to start looking into similar hobbies. We thought it was kind of weird, but just brushed it off and avoided him. Flash forward a couple of weeks into the start of summer vacation. He had found or followed me to all of my favorite places and my work, even though both were sometimes towns over from our own. I would see his car at parks where I did outdoor painting, at my place of work as well as my friends' houses, and he would drive past the houses of the family I nannied for during my days on. I thought it was creepy and told local authorities, but they told me not to worry. This went on for the rest of high school and up until graduation. I didn't tell anyone what university I was going to and lied, claiming it was 1 hour away from mine. He was accepted and attended there while I left for another. He found out after a semester that I wasn't there and showed up at my dorm hall. He tried to break in and convince me and other people in the building to just let him in. I hid out in another girl's room until my friend was able to pick me up and take me to her boyfriend's off-campus apartment. I found out he was arrested the next morning for assaulting an RA. I called and showed them the evidence I had for his persistent stalking and finally filed a restraining order. He just got released a few months ago, and I have never been more nervous. I'm just happy my current job and living area has amazing security, and they all have pictures and his information to be safe. I may be paranoid, but better safe than end up on a true crime podcast. Last year, my girlfriend was getting emails, texts, and DMs from a no-name account asking intrusive and weird questions. Are you in an open relationship? Random sexually explicit stuff she just blocked and moved on. Shocker to me, this is apparently very normal for women and it effing sucks. Anyway, one time we were in a mall and she noticed this lanky guy was following us. Again, I'm oblivious. She mentions to me that she thinks it's the guy who has been harassing her for weeks. We leave. She gets an email to her business email that night telling her that her boyfriend is cheating on her and flirting with other girls on Goodreads. And how does that make her feel? If she wants to know more, she can meet him at a park that we spend a lot of our time together at. She now knows that he lives in our area and has all the information about her. She stops going for runs at night. She stops shopping by herself, etc. Locks down every account, doesn't leave the house alone. She's just angry. I'm angry too. I ended up looking this guy up and realizing that we had a mutual friend, just an actor that I had filmed a commercial with. I send her a message asking if she knows the guy and explain the situation. I see that she's read it but doesn't respond. So for a few months, my girlfriend doesn't hear anything from him and we just decide that it's over with. Then I get a message from the actor. Apparently, she didn't know the stalker. It was her ex-boyfriend. They had an abusive relationship, and he was really jealous. I guess he focused in on me because we would recommend each other books on Goodreads. He then decided that he was going to get even with me by stalking my girlfriend. The actor is embarrassed and is saying shit like, "I understand if you never want to talk to me again," which just breaks my heart. We offered to help her out, but she said that she has a restraining order and that it's fine. She did contact him, and he said he'll stop and never contact us again. We thought we were fine, that it was over with. Then, one day, he sends me a long Instagram DM trying to explain his behavior and saying that he wants to talk. I ignore it. He keeps sending messages. I keep ignoring it. I think he's done now, but I'll never forgive this guy for making my partner feel incredibly unsafe for a year. TL, TR. Some guy stalked and harassed my girlfriend because I liked his ex's Goodreads challenge. I caught him jerking off in the window. Long story short, my husband and I moved into our new home. Weird guy directly behind us was weird in the window. Turns out he was jerking off, stalked online, got my number, told me this was basically God's plan. He prayed for a beautiful woman and here I was. How my kids were gonna be his. Wild shit. I went on 3 dates with a guy but didn't quite feel like there was a connection. Tried to let him down gently as he hadn't had a girlfriend before. I was happy to remain friends as he was a friendly guy, I just wasn't attracted to him. This was about May. I've learned a few lessons from this one. He added me on Facebook, which was okay as we'd communicate through there sometimes. A month or so goes by and he turns up at my house unannounced saying that he was in the area. He actually lived 45 minutes away and decided to go shopping in my town. I wasn't home at the time. My brother messaged me to let me know, and then the guy messaged me too. I apologized and said I was out, won't be home for several hours. That's fine. He went home. He'd picked me up from my house for the 3rd date. A few weeks later, I had accepted an event invitation on Facebook to a car show my mechanic was hosting. The guy turned up at this car event whilst I was there with my brother and some friends, and I didn't really know what to do about it. My brother kept him entertained, and I managed to exchange pleasantries but stayed with my friends. I went for lunch with my friends, and when I got home, I found out the guy had gone to my house again. This time, he had left some chocolates, a towel with my name embroidered on it, and a letter. In the letter, he explained how he was in love with me, wanted to have children with me, get married, and get a house together. Oh, and the towel was so I could think about him when I dry myself with it. Again, I turned him down because I wasn't into him. A few months later, I'm seeing someone else, and he's over at my house. This guy turns up again, unannounced, trying to get a hold of me. Why didn't he just message or call me? But luckily my brother is aware I've got this new guy with me, so tells the guy I'm not home. I had to explain to him in a message that if he wants to see me, he actually needs to contact me first, not just turn up unannounced and expect me to be available. It made it much more difficult to want to be friends with him as it was becoming a bit overbearing, and I didn't know what he'd try next, so I had to just cut him off. He tried contacting me through several methods. He even changed his phone pretending to be someone else. He finally stopped after a year and a half. In the social media age, it sucks that you have to be so vigilant as to block an individual that you don't want to contact you. It's really unfortunate because they could just keep making dummy account and dummy account. Has that ever happened to you? I was stalked by a guy I went to high school with. He was the kid everyone thought would shoot up our school if he could. Everybody would pick on him and make fun of him for being a loser, but I never did. His mom was a teacher at our school and I loved her, so I never wanted to upset her by being mean to her son. I guess he took my niceness as me having a crush on him, and he became obsessed with me. He would stick love notes in my locker all the time, and he made it a point to come visit his mom's class when he knew I'd be in there. I was her teacher's assistant. Because I was so close with his mom, I never talked to her about it because I didn't want it to be awkward. I was never actually scared of this guy until he started coming to my house in the middle of the night. My dad worked swing shift, and he would be gone a lot at night. This guy would sneak out of his house late at night and come knock on my window or creep around my house. I had to call the cops a couple of times, and at that point, I decided I had to talk to his mom. His parents were super apologetic and said they'd take care of it, but he still wouldn't leave me alone. I got married young and moved away from my hometown and didn't think I'd ever hear or have to see him again. One day, he sent me a friend request on MySpace and sent this big long message saying how sorry he was for ever making me feel scared or uncomfortable, so I decided to accept his request. I thought maybe he'll actually grow up and change. At first, he seemed like he genuinely just wanted to be friends, but then he started leaving creepy comments on pictures of me and my kids. The final straw was when his wife messaged me and told me to leave her husband alone. She told me that she knew I was in love with him and that I needed to stop messaging him. Apparently, this is what he told her when she caught him creeping on my pictures. I showed her screenshots of the messages he had sent me and the comments on my pictures and blocked them both. He's tried to friend me 3 times from different profiles on Facebook, and I've had to block all of them. I hope to hell I never see him again. I have a weird kind of related story. There's a man in my town that for the last 15 years, I see him constantly. Almost everywhere I go, he's there, at least 3 times a month. The grocery store, the corner store, the gas station, Walmart, the liquor store. Occasionally, we catch each other's eye and look at each other like, "You again?" and kind of laugh it off. It has come to be a little bit of a joke where I will come home and tell my husband, "Guess who I saw at the store today?" The only catch, he's always at these places first, so it's me who looks like the stalker. I mean, in a small town, this could just be totally a coincidence, or maybe you're the stalker. I worked as a secretary at an adult school when I was 18. An adult student kept bothering me, taking pictures of me outside the office, etc. I quit that job and got him banned from the school. Fast forward 3 years later, I'm in a relationship, 6 months pregnant, and I'm working at a doctor's office. A police officer shows up and tells me I've had a private investigator on me for a few weeks, but he reported his client to the police because his client said he was my husband. But the PI, after following me for a few weeks, figured out he wasn't and was stalking me. He went to jail for a few days, never heard from him again. It's been 19 years. Had this woman who would walk into the store I worked at just to talk to me. After a while, I got creeped out and started doing inventory in the back whenever someone spotted her walking in. I swear she looked more like Annie Wilkes than Kathy Bates did. Used to see her standing outside the library, waiting to get in. She would be cheerful, but then utter a string of F-bombs or MF-bombs if she felt slighted in any way, still with that cheerful yet dead-eyed look on her face. I've never had the threatening stalker, but when I was much younger, I did have one of those soft-core stalkers. It was the custodian in my building at work. We had a glass front door, and he would lean against it while I was at the front desk. He would watch me as I walked to my car at the end of the day. He didn't ever really speak to me, though. One day, I entered the building in a skirt, and he was on his hands and knees cleaning the baseboards, which I put his head about the same level as my nethers. I passed by him in the halls, giving him a wide berth as I could, hugging the opposite wall, really, when he looks up and says, "Something sure smells good." I bolted to my office and said to my boss, "I feel like I need a hug and a shower." My boss, my former mentor, my now dear friend, threw his hands up when I told him what the stalker said and said, "That's it, I've had it." First, he tried to handle things professionally and wrote the property manager, who said that I must have been mistaken, and he was complimenting my perfume, which I didn't wear because another coworker was allergic and it was a small space. When that didn't work, he decided to patiently lie in wait, and then the next time the stalker went to look for me at the front desk, boss sits up and elsewhere in the office and confronts him. He never told me what he said or how the conversation went, but the stalker quit shortly thereafter.